Idaho Matters podcast is brought to you by St. Luke's On-Demand Virtual Care, which allows patients to see a provider from their home using a computer or smartphone with on-demand care for common ailments such as a cough, sore throat, or a sinus issue. More information at stlukesonline.org. Idaho Matters is taking a deep dive into the loss of farmland here in the Gem State. Are you a farmer? What challenges do you face as farmland shrinks in Idaho? We want to hear your story. Email us at idahomatters@boisestate.edu or leave us a voicemail using the Talk to Us feature in the Boise State Public Radio app. And then listen to our series on farming called Land and Legacy. Episodes available on Monday afternoons in the Idaho Matters podcast feed. From the studios of Boise State Public Radio News, I'm Gemma Gaudette. More Idaho Matters right now. Next year, America will mark 250 years of independence. It's an anniversary that prompts celebration and important conversations about our nation's history, which is why every state is taking time to reflect on the role they've played in shaping America's story. So here in Idaho, Boise State University is joining that conversation by inviting Wilfred McClay, a historian and member of the U.S. Commission on the Semiquincentennial, to discuss how to think about America's 250th birthday. And McClay is joining us now for a preview. I want to welcome you to the program.
Hello, it's good to be with you, Gemma.
So 250 years, it's a big anniversary, but why should everyday Americans be caring about this milestone?
Well, it's quite a remarkable achievement. We've held together this long and held together under the aegis of some pretty admirable ideals that we may not have always reached, but we're still working on it. And I think there's a lot to admire about our history. But it's really, I think, something more primal than that. I mean, we don't have to sort of decide what we think, reach some sort of final conclusion about aspects of our past. I think, in some ways, it's a much more primary thing than that. We simply come together and celebrate being a people and having lasted this long.
You'll actually be visiting Boise State University this coming Thursday, and you'll be discussing how to think about this 250th birthday. Why was this a topic you wanted to explore more?
Because I think that there are some people who are kind of indifferent to the idea, and I think there are other people who think this is a time for settling accounts. This is a time for nailing down what we think to be the approved narrative of American history, whether it is all exaltation or all condemnation or something in between. I don't think it should be either of those things. I think it's certainly a time for reflection, but I don't think it's a time to litigate the past. I think it's a time to reflect on it. Those are two different things. So that's part of my short answer to the question posed by my title, how to think about the 250th. Can I tell you something else that has been an analogy that I have used with the commission? Because there are people on both sides of the aisle, so to speak, on the commission who have different kinds of objectives. And I said, don't think of this as a settling of accounts. Think of this as something more like one of those family reunions that you find, especially in the South, where some of my life, I'm not a Southerner, but these enormous family reunions where you have people all over, all of whom have in common the fact that they're Smiths or whatever the family name. And they may be of different races, there may be divorces, all kinds of the chaos of life, and people who are not on speaking terms. But they come because they're Smiths, because this is something that very, as I say, primal, deserve. And I think politics could be set aside for the time being by both factions, from multiple factions in this country, simply to celebrate the fact of our being.
There's a lot of talk today about how history is remembered and sometimes rewritten. In your opinion, how do we strike a balance between truth telling and what some would call national pride?
Well, those are not mutually exclusive terms. I think truth telling can involve telling the truth about the things about our country that are worthy of pride, or I don't especially like that particular word, but that are good things, they're admirable things. And um, as I've said before, I don't see that this should be an occasion for assessing whether it's more or less of the other, and this is not the occasion to rewrite history. Um, it is true that we have part of the glory of our country is that we have a lot of different views about our past, and we don't have an approved national narrative that everybody has to sign on to, or else you don't count as an American. Um, that's actually a fairly recent thing, this notion of un-Americanness, which I think kind of came with an increasingly ideological of what America is, and I hope is somewhat passing away, or at least being mitigated some. In a lot of ways, I think what draws us together is more the sort of shared experiences that are part of our history, part of our memory. And some people remember different things. That's fine. In fact, that's as it should be. Um, because I don't favor the idea of having a one stamped, bottled in bond, secured loan history for the entire country.
Mm-hmm.
I think our diverse people part of our genius, and we should.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. I right, should.
How can reflecting on our history help Americans navigate the world we live in today?
Oh well, the one of the things that I think the illusions that we are all too prone to accept, embrace, is the idea that we're living in a time that is completely unprecedented. Yes, we have everybody's carrying an iPhone around. Yes, there are all kinds of technological changes that are significant. That we're going to have to learn how to live with them. But that's been true of every period in our history. There have always been these kinds of there are always changes that we have to adapt to, and so I I think the notion that of being living in an unprecedented time is it's a way of letting ourselves off the hook of knowing about the past, knowing the ways that we are connected to the past, the way the past is part of us, good or for ill, uh, and the way in which the past is something we can draw upon. Uh, this is, again, I think maybe my having lived in the South, although not being myself a Southerner, Southerners do have this sort of sense that Faulkner articulated: the past is not gone, it's not even past. Uh, Past has ways of lingering on for good and ill. And if we don't know something about it, we aren't really equipped to deal with them moving forward, because we don't know a big part of the story, the origins
Mm.
of the circumstances that we're trying.
What are you hoping Americans consider as we begin to mark this milestone?
Well, I think we are a country that is exceptional in many ways. Some of it has to do with accidents of our being separated by two oceans from Europe and Asia, Europe on one hand, Asia on the other. Um, but it also, this has been a place full of opportunity. It's not a myth; it's a reality, and it's the reason so many people still want to come here. So I think we want to reflect on that, why that is, what are the aspects of American made it uniquely open to opportunity, and how to reinforce those things, how to teach our young people that they're not living in the worst time in human history. They're living in one of the best, and they need to find ways to take advantage of that in the context of their own lives and the formation of their families and the development of their communities and all of these things. So I think reflecting on our many gifts, our many advantages, and reflecting on our failures is certainly part of that too. But I think reflecting is a different thing than brooding. I don't see the value of brooding. I do see the value of thoughtful, fact-based, non-sentiment inflected reflection on our failure. I think with a view towards making things right, whatever ways we.
Well, I want to thank you so very much for taking time to talk with us. We've been speaking with Wilfred McClay about his upcoming lecture on how to think about America's 250th birthday. It will be taking place this Thursday at 7 p.m. I'm Gemma Gaudette, and this is Idaho Matters.
Sources and methods, the crown jewels of the intelligence community. Shorthand for how do we know what's real? Who told us? If you have those answers, you're on the inside, and NPR wants to bring you there. From the Pentagon to the State Department to spy agencies, listen to understand what's really happening and what it means for you. Sources and Methods, the new national security podcast from NPR.